Hi, everyone. This is Siris Rivas-Verdejo from Choosing a Different Future Show. Thanks so much for checking in with us today. We have a wonderful and dynamic guest. I'm super, super excited to have her on. We have Lacey Broussard, who is an amazing person that I found on Instagram, of all places. And I was kind of unsure about inviting her on our show. I figured she'd be super, super busy, and she is, and yet she was able to squeeze us into her schedule. So very, very grateful to have her on our show. She's a certified sex coach, Tantra and Jade egg teacher. She uses deep transformational tools and techniques based in modern coaching modalities and ancient tantric wisdom and Taoist practices to help women like you, for some of you that are watching this, get your desire back and have the most mind-blowing sex of your life. I love what she says. If you check out some of her bios and things like that, she has a lot of different creations going on. One of the things that she talks about, and I'd love to hear more about from her today, is people who lack a lot of confidence, who might have some low libido. Maybe they have some guilt and shame around their sexuality because of what's going on in their bedroom. And so she invites them to have what's actually true for them, something a lot more fun through whatever choices they have. I'm looking forward to hearing about her tools and strategies about this so that people who are looking for more soulful and successful connected sex to join with her to create something that's actually really, really exciting for them and their partners as well. So thank you so much, Lacey, for being on here. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, it's great to be on. Thank you for inviting me.
So your show, actually it's not even a show, you have a bunch of different things going on. Your website is the Multiorgasmic Mama.com. How did you get started?
Yeah, well, there's basically two stories, right? Well, the first one is my own personal story of being raised in the South. I'm from New Orleans, Louisiana, and I had a very conservative religious upbringing. And I ended up, having a lot of shutdown around my sexuality when I became, a late teenager, 18, 20 years old. And I started realizing that I felt like I couldn't express myself in the bedroom. I felt really guilty about having sex, so much that I married the first guy that I lived with because I thought that would cure, like marrying him would like cure the guilt and the shame that I had, which obviously did not.
I've heard that a lot from many people. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was only 20 years old. I was just young and didn't know any better. And then I ended up having my first son at home. I had a home birth, and it was an incredible experience for me, and it totally cracked me open. So pretty much I realized in having him that everything that I had been taught about my body and about my sexuality and about pleasure, it was absolutely wrong. And that's when I started questioning. I questioned everything I had believed in. I started diving into all sorts of, at that point in time, it seemed like crazy things, I started doing yoga, I started learning meditation, I started reading every single self-help book in the library. Like, I was like, I just don't know what to believe anymore. I don't even know who I am. Like, that birth, I had my first son when I was 22 or 23. So, I was still questioning a lot. And I ended up working at a birth center as a doula and a midwife apprentice. And I saw that there were so many women that would come in for their postpartum appointments, and they were just like, sex and sexuality was laughable. Like, they would literally laugh in my face when I'd tell them that, okay, you can have sex now, you're good, So it was just like,
they were like, sure, that thing, like over there, like far away.
yes, totally. So I started noticing that this was a really big thing for women after having kids in particular. And at the time, I was around 27 at this time. And I just saw a lot of my friends were starting to have kids, and they were telling me the same thing. Like, they were hardly ever having sex with their partners anymore. Like it was just the last thing on their mind. They were too overwhelmed, stressed, and tired. And I was like, oh my God, so many women have issues around sexuality. Like I had no idea until I started like being the one to receive the information, you know, as, you know, in those postpartum appointments. So around this time, I was starting to learn the Jade egg practice. So the Jade egg is an ancient Taoist practice from China that was created about 1500 to 2000 years ago. And the jade egg is literally, it's an egg-shaped stone that you use inside of your vagina, and you do different squeezes and releases and breathwork practices. It's pretty much like yoga for the female body. So like people ask me all the time, what does it look like? So if you were to go to like a yoga class, and like a yin yoga class in particular.
Yeah, those are the ones where you're more passive and you're laying down for the most part. You're not the active poses of yoga, correct?
Correct. Exactly. Yes. So if you were to watch people doing a yin yoga class, it'd be very similar to what it looks like to do a jade egg practice. So something about the jade egg that I always want to make people really clear about is that it's not just wearing the egg inside of your vagina. That is not the practice. That's not going to do anything for you. That's not its intention and its purpose. But people think it is because it's a cool little stone. They hear cool things about it. They just want to buy one and try it out. But until you like use it and like do things with it, it's not going to have the benefits that you're hoping to get out of it. So I started learning the jade egg practice for myself because I heard that it could help you to reconnect with your body, with your sexuality. I never struggled personally with lack of desire. So I struggled with the guilt and shame. And I saw all of these patients that were struggling with the lack of desire, mainly for other reasons, and just being disconnected from their body, from their sexuality in general. So,
well, and I bet that can also go hand in hand. So sometimes, okay, you have all of this lack of desire, this low libido, and then you're shamed and guilty for it because you'd like to show your affection with your partner, but it's like it's just not really there. The interest isn't there in the same way that it used to be. So it's interesting that you didn't have that yourself, the low libido and the lack of desire. There's some kind of energy with what you were saying about the actual water birth or home birth of your first son. Was that an actual like orgasmic experience for you? Because I've heard that for some women that can be, that the actual birth, that they have multiple orgasms during childbirth, and that's often not even discussed as a possibility.
Right. Yeah, that's a great question. And yes, many women have orgasmic births. I'm actually really great friends with the lady that created the orgasmic birth documentary.
There's an orgasmic birth documentary. Could you send that to us so we can put that in the description for our guests?
Absolutely.
The hosts and everything and the audience. Awesome. Yes. I think that people would like to see that perhaps.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I wouldn't consider my first birth to have been orgasmic. That documentary literally came out the week after I birthed him.
Oh man.
I don't know that it would have helped anyway, but you know, the experience was so powerful because I literally just had no doubt. Like I had not an ounce of fear, and my body is also an unassisted birth. So a lot of people are like, oh my God, how did you do that? I was like, well, I don't know. Like I wasn't worried about it. Like there just literally was not an ounce of doubt or fear in my mind and in my body that this wasn't how my kid needed to be born. So it was just like that level of unshakable trust in myself and my intuition and my own guidance. And thank God, because he was born 2.5 hours from start to finish. And by the time I really knew that I was in labor, like there's no way I would have made it to a hospital or even a birth center. Like I couldn't have even moved to get in a car to go anywhere because he was born so fast. And then
that's unheard of as well. What a gift.
Yeah, the second one was born in 30 minutes. So,
awesome.
You know, it was like my body just knew, like, and my intuition was so spot on, and I had such trust in that. And that's when I started, I had that experience, and I just questioned, like, well, how could my body be something to be ashamed of? Why should I not trust my body? Why should I not trust my desire and the things that bring me pleasure, because birthing a baby at home brought a lot more pleasurable ideas, and like it felt so much better to me than to get, you know, to buy into all of the fear and to go to a hospital. You know, it taught me that I could trust my pleasure and that I could trust my desires, and that they weren't wrong, that they weren't going to send me to hell. They weren't going to kill my baby. You know, they weren't going to do bad things to me. My desire was actually divine. And that's what I learned from that birth, is that my desires were divine, and that my desires are my North Star, that I have desire because it leads me to the full expression of my being. It helps me, it leads me to a place that I can be of greater service to humanity. And without my desire, there's no North Star. So everything about, you know, how I'd been raised had just gotten abolished in that moment, pretty much. And I knew from then on I could never go back. I had found something to be true for me. For the first time in my life, like I found what was true for me, instead of feeling like I was issued a truth that I should believe in.
Yeah, you had to buy into.
Yeah.
Having that level of clarity and knowing for yourself is just so profound. And I'm so glad that you had that moment, and that now you're able to invite other people to have that, whatever was true for them. So with the Jade Egg practice, so you started mentioning that you started using it for yourself.
Yeah.
And what changes did you notice for you?
Yeah, I had this amazing experience. Okay, let me back up to the non-amazing experience.
Okay.
I had birthed 2 babies. I had seen over 100 births by this time, and I could not put that jade egg inside of my pussy to save my life. It took me 10 tries. I literally couldn't even touch my cervix. I wanted to vomit. Like, I literally wanted to throw up.
There's like a visceral response at the very idea of doing that.
Well, of trying it. So, and like, obviously I'd had sex before, but me touching my own cervix and like feeling a jade egg in there and just contacting, like, there was so much disgust that came up. Like, I just wanted to vomit. Wow. So this is a really intense experience for me, just to get to the point of being able to do my first jade egg practice was,
it takes a great level of courage.
Yeah, exactly. And so sometimes, you know, the things that we have the greatest resistance to are the things that we know deep down would also give us our greatest breakthrough.
Oh, I absolutely agree with that. I've seen that over and over again on so many things for myself and for other people. Yeah.
And because I had so much resistance to it and I overcame it, and ended up having an enormous breakthrough. So what happened is that I started practicing about 3 times a week for like 15, 20 minutes at a time with the jade egg. And then I woke up one morning, you know, around 4 a.m. or something. And you know that space where you're like half asleep, half awake. Right?
Yeah.
And I just remember feeling like all of this dark black energy move out of my body. And I just saw it, like it was like demons almost, like leaving my body. And it was all of the guilt and the shame that I had been raised to believe about myself and my sexuality. And it literally just left, poof, gone. Never felt another ounce of guilt and shame around my body or my sexuality ever again.
That's beautiful. Wow.
Yeah. So then that sparked, like once that was gone, then, so we call that the path of purification in the tantric tradition. The jade egg. So there's usually a path of purification, and then there's a path of pleasure. So you get all of the stuck, stagnant energy inside out, and you can come to absolute insane levels of pleasure, infinite pleasure. So what resulted then was becoming so sensitized in my deep vagina, being able to have cervical orgasms, like A-spot, deep vaginal orgasms from penetration. Like, I became so multi-orgasmic. Like, it was just insane. I had no idea how much pleasure my body was capable of experiencing without all of that shit weighing me down and all of
Oh
that
yeah.
shame.
It gets in the way of all of that.
Yeah. So after that was gone, then it was like a portal opened to multi-orgasmic bliss. And it was like, oh my God, this is what I'm here to do with my life. Wake up women to like their full desire and turn on and increase their pleasure, you know? So after I saw all these women in the birth center, I was like, okay, what can I do? I want to serve women in this way. And then literally like a week later, I got an email from my Tantra teacher and my Jade teacher that she was opening up a certification course to become a sex coach. And I was like, done. I don't care how much it is. Here's my credit card. Let's go.
Yeah.
This is what I'm here to do.
Awesome.
So that's kind of how I got to being a sex coach. And yes, I mainly work with women that lack desire, or that just want to experience different types of orgasms or have just better sex. You know, maybe that you got stuck in a routine with your partner and maybe you have unresolved sexual trauma, all sorts of stuff like this. And I do get men too. I have some male clients, which I adore my male clients too, but I don't really speak to them. They just end up finding me and they're, you know, so yeah.
So how do you provide the services? I love your posts. I mean, even just your posts on Instagram and things are very inspiring, are really thought-provoking, and it creates so much awareness, and kind of shakes up your world. Anywhere that you have any like fixed point of view about things with bodies and sexuality, it goes, and I love that. So when you are providing these services, is it usually more through classes, or do you actually have like sessions? How does that look like?
Yeah, I only work with people one-on-one, and occasionally I offer a group program. So one-on-one, I work with people a minimum of 5 months, and everything is over Zoom. So this software that we're recording on.
Yeah.
Most of my clients are all over the world. Most of them are in California or New York or somewhere. I have some in New Orleans where I'm from. So they're just from all over. But yeah, it's all virtual. No, I don't meet with anyone in person. Yeah, so 5 months minimum to work with me because it takes a level of commitment to the process, because it's not easy. A lot of people have a lot of deep, dark stuff going on. And so the sessions that we go are really deep. I don't waste your time, and we get at it right then and there. And then you get all sorts of homework practices to do in between sessions. That's really important to do as well.
Cool. Wow. So many questions. So for you, like you said that a lot of your clients are like in different coasts around the country, and that you're seeing them through online one-on-one, and sometimes you have these group sessions and things. What I'm wondering is how, it seems like you've completely shifted your whole life around, that your whole perspective on you and your body and your relationship with your body and the trajectory that it's gone on for now, this business that you have is completely different. It's a completely different future that you've chosen for yourself. So how has your family responded to this? How do your kids, do they know about this? What's their take on it?
That's a great question. So my kids are literally in that room right there listening to me. One just walked across here going to the bathroom.
Love it.
They are 8 and 11, and they know exactly what I do. They don't really understand it, but I try to involve them as much in my business as possible. We have a home base here in New Orleans, but I consider myself a world citizen because I do travel often now. So the last 2 years I've started traveling more now that they're older. And it's been wonderful because now they see what's really possible. And I'm also single. So like they see their single mom rocking a biz and, you know, building it from the ground up. And it's awesome for them to learn that you don't, that like that dream is actually possible because they're seeing it, you know. And it's not easy, you know. It is a lot of work, and it takes a lot when you're a solopreneur and you're doing everything yourself. But like just the lessons in entrepreneurship and business alone. I also have an entrepreneur story, which is I can share really quick. It'll take
I would love to hear it. Yeah. It's all connected.
It is definitely connected. So when I just had my second baby. So this was almost 9 years ago. I went back to work as a city planner. And when I was working as a city planner, my boss walked in on me pumping my breast for milk for my baby. And they tried to fire me because of it. And from that moment,
in your closed office that
yeah.
they walked into. Okay.
Yeah. So this was in Lafayette, Louisiana. So super, super conservative area, like very old school. Like the guy was 60 years old. I mean, he just had never seen anything like it in his life. Like he was just so appalled and so disgusted.
Mm-hmm.
So literally from that moment on, I made a vow to myself that I was never going to work for another person again, so that I could put myself in a position for them to treat me like a piece of shit for taking care of my kids.
Yeah.
So that is my entrepreneur story. And from that moment on, I never depended on someone else to make money. That's when I said, screw it. And I went to the birth center and I started working as a doula. I had 3 months of income. Like I had 3 months that I could survive without making any money. And I vowed to myself that I was going to figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
And I was going to show that my kids that you can do whatever you want, be whoever you are, do what brings you the most joy and brings you the most pleasure, and create the life that you want, and that it's possible, that you can do this, that it really is possible to do this.
Mm-hmm.
And they're seeing it, you know?
Yeah.
So that was my story into entrepreneurship and why I decided that I was never going to go back into like a job, you know, again. So it's always been a really important piece to my story because, you know, that I do everything I do, obviously, for my clients, but also to show my kids that it's possible to have your dreams come true, and that you can have a business and a life that you love and serve humanity at the highest level.
Yeah. Wow, that's stupendous. I love it. The other piece I'm looking at, because you know I work with kids and families as well, is this piece of, you know, as you're traveling around, yes, they're seeing your, you know, your entrepreneurial spirit, your business pursuits and endeavors, and they're also getting to meet and be exposed to so many different things, be it foods in different cities and cultures and all these people. And I think that can also have a pretty profound effect on children, like those that actually get to learn through these experiences with all the multisensory experience, instead of just reading about it or hearing about it. It's like they're receiving it with their entire body. And that seems just so congruent with everything else that you're doing with your business too. I think that's awesome.
Yeah, thank you.
You're most welcome, most welcome. So what about your extended family? How is their take on this?
Yeah, well, obviously, that was a bit of a challenge, right? So they're still super Southern Baptist, and I have to.
Southern Baptist. Bless your heart.
Yeah. Yes, that's what I came from. So they're very, very strict Southern Baptist. Literally, they've never had alcohol in the house their entire life. They don't dance. Like, they're that kind of Southern Baptist. So
yeah, no, I'm familiar.
You're
now,
right.
That helps put things in perspective. Thank you.
And their wild child, Lacey, is a professional tantrika with, you know, roots in Buddhist and Hinduism. So, yes, they know what I do. They know exactly what I do. When I did my training for this work, the sex, love, relationship coaching training through the Tantric Institute of Integrated Sexuality, I had to go on 2 trips, one to Mexico. So we went to the jungle of Mexico and pretty much meditated and danced our way into enlightenment for 2 weeks, naked in the jungle.
Sounds wonderful.
It was a yeah, so it's like a very intense deconditioning around sexuality and bodies. So that's what we did. We did breathwork journeys, deep shamanic healing work, very, very intense tantric practices, you know, but just absolutely incredible, amazing things. And I met 165 of the most amazing women on the planet that just became like this community for me. And literally without them, there's no way that I would have been able to do what I currently do. So just knowing that how important sisterhood and a community of people that actually support you and that are there to like support you no matter what, because your family might not do that. They might say that they're going to do that, but they don't support my work. Like they don't
support doing it to the best of their ability, like as much as they can are able to do given all their points of views.
Yes. And I'm very adamant about the rule of the 5 friends that you have around you. Like you are the sum of the 5 people that you hang around the most. So obviously, like I had this huge need to be around people that actually celebrated and supported my journey, and that could support my openness around my sexuality. And that community and sisterhood was that for me. And I could not have ever come out to my family about what I do without them. So when I went to Mexico for that trip, I needed help with my kids. So I had my parents come and stay at my house and help out. And of course they wanted to know why. So I told them that I was doing a coaching training, that it was like, it was a tantric coaching training, and that it was for sexuality, to help women to rehabilitate their pelvic floor and to help them reconnect with their body and their sexuality after having kids.
That's a great way to put it in a very accessible.
Yeah.
I mean, but I also don't have a lot of the points of views that would bring up the resistance to that. But I found that to be very palatable.
Right. Yeah, that's exactly how I told them. And then I went to their house last summer for a couple of weeks, and I stayed there. And my mom, she just, the most incredible thing happened. She just confronted me one day and she said, Lacey, I know that we're completely different. Like we have completely different values. Like you don't value the same things we do. And I get it. And I just want to apologize if there's anything that I ever did that like kept you from really being you or felt like you couldn't be you. And I was like, oh my God, you just, that hit my core wound, because one of my core wounds was just not, like from very early on, a very young age, I knew that I was not what they were. I didn't believe the things that they believed, that, you know, the Christianity and the things that they believed in. And I didn't know what I did believe in. I just knew that I didn't believe those things. Yeah. And so there was always this feeling like I just don't know who I am, or like what do I believe in then? So she said that, it was just like, oh my God, thank you. Because yeah, like I grew up all of this time being fed a belief system that I just never believed. And it was really hard to find my way. Sorry, it took 15 years.
Hey, at least it showed up. It takes however long it takes. As long as you keep putting one foot in front of the other, you don't give up.
Right.
Like,
yeah.
Woo, that's huge. That is huge. Wow.
And then my sister, even this, she's still very much rooted in that stuff, but she's way more open. You know, she's only a couple years older than me. So even this past Mother's Day, she had a chat with me about, she's like, Lacey, you're doing a really good job. Like, I don't understand how you do what you do and how you got to be so successful doing it. But I just want you to know I'm really proud of you, and I think you're awesome for doing it and like following your journey. And I was like, oh my God, like what? Am I seriously getting validation for like, my path here?
That's a lovely acknowledgement. Like, holy cow. Yeah. And at the same time, I'd like to acknowledge you for not waiting for that validation and that acknowledgement before creating your life and rocking it out and just being a badass all over the place and receiving from other people. It's like, okay, well, it's not coming from my family just yet. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. But hey, let me add on all these other people and be a part of this community that does have my back and that is willing to support me and keep expanding my life and living. It's awesome. That's really cool. So do you ever consider doing classes and like workshops, or you have before perhaps, and then when's your next one? Or is there anything coming up?
I have done workshops before, and honestly, they're just not worth my time to do them right now because, I mean, I live in New Orleans, even though it's like the most liberal part of the South. People just don't understand what Tantra is. They don't understand what it is I'm doing. And it's just the best use of my time to reach people online. That's how I started my business. I always created it to be an online business. I didn't ever want to be locked into a location or anything like that. So I have done them in the past, but I have not since last year, and I don't see that happening anytime soon. Other than my group programs will eventually have retreats connected to them as well.
Okay,
so
cool.
Retreats as part of
I'm just asking because I know people are going to ask me. So I'm just, addressing it head on. Where can we go to her class? Got it. So sorry, y'all. Lacey's not doing any classes anytime soon. Maybe if you all petition and get enough, roar into it, maybe we can convince her otherwise. But yeah, check out the one-on-one sessions. This is awesome. So if you could invite the world to a different possibility. I know that you're targeting and you work more with women than men, but you're definitely including men into the equation. And obviously if the partners of the women that you're working with are men, then you're indirectly impacting their lives and there's the sexualness, that their bliss as well, and the pleasures that they have access to. So if you could invite the world to anything that would create greater possibilities, that would create a future that you would like to see, what would it be?
Sexual integration. Sexual healing and integration. Because there's not a human being on this planet that doesn't have some sort of conditioning or trauma around their sexuality to work through. And the result of that is more trauma. More trauma and more conditioning, and passing all of that shit on to our children. And do you really want to have another need for Me Too movement or feminism for another 50, 100 years? If you don't want that to continue, then guess what? It starts with you. It starts with you coming into full integration around your sexuality and understanding what is toxic femininity, toxic masculinity, understanding that you have both in you. Just because you're a woman doesn't mean that you are only feminine. Just because you're a man doesn't mean you're only masculine. We all have both. We are the yin yang. We are the entire universe inside of us. And until we come into full integration, balance, and harmony in our own system, and understand the shadow of the feminine, understand the shadow of the masculine. Right now, the masculine shadow is very much not in the shadow anymore. It's very upfront in our face, and there's a lot of trauma and abuse still happening because no one is doing the deep inner work to change that. And until we see those shifts, then people aren't going to change. There's going to be more Me Too movements and more people coming out about the sexual traumas that they've endured. And we're going to continue to pass on this legacy of guilt, shame, slut shaming, women's sexual oppression. It's still continuing. And if you don't want your kids to have that, then you've got to do the work on yourself. And it doesn't start, you can talk to them all day about it, but kids don't listen to you ultimately. They do what they see.
Yep.
The actions. And until you do that work on yourself, that's all it is just talk. Yeah.
I will leave it at that. That is awesome, Lacey. Thank you so much for making the time to be on our show. Thank you all of you for watching. If you would like to message Lacey, please put any comments below, like the video, subscribe to our channel. I'll make sure that Lacey gets all of the messages, and we'll also put all of her contact information below. Check out her Instagram posts. They're amazing. That's how I discovered her, and they're just so dynamic and such an invitation to a different possibility. And so if you have any questions for us, go ahead and check out all of our past episodes, and you can contact us through the website choosingadifferentfuture.com. Again, Lacey, thank you so much for being on the show. I hope to have you on again. Just let me know when you can squeeze us in again, okay?
No problem.
Bye for now, everyone.